Wyoming Armory, right here in Cody, Wyoming. Ground zero in the world of Winchesters. Now we do a lot of restoration work on Winchesters here, and occasionally we get some pretty rough examples to restore, especially some of the family guns. Been in families for generations, and the owner wants them to look just like they did when great-grandpa bought it back in the day. So some of these examples will come in this really heavily pitted, like this 73 receiver, or dinged up really bad, and grandpa used it really hard hunting, and this particular one's been dinged up and had some polish work on it and in pretty rough condition. We do our level best to save the markings on these things, but of course when we've got pits that deep or dings that deep, as deep as the markings, in order to polish them off and clean that metal up, we're going to lose those markings. They're going to be obliterated. So today we're going to show you something a little bit different. We're going to pull back the curtain and show you just exactly how we restore those markings when they've had to have been polished off in order to properly restore these receivers. And today we're just going to look at the markings on the top tang, and we'll kind of show you one we did on a bottom tang where we had to restore a serial number. So stick around, this ought to be interesting. Okay, so today we're going to reproduce the markings on the upper tang of a Winchester 1873. And you can see there's a little kind of a flourish here. I've heard people call them a Christmas tree. Then we've got the word model spelled out, 1873, and then another one of those little Christmas trees going in the opposite direction on the other end. Now here's the receiver we're going to be stamping, and you can see that all the upper tang markings were lost during the polishing process. We've got a couple of reference marks here to help us locate those stamps. Okay, so here's the three stamps that we're going to be using today. You can see first, here's our little Christmas tree stamp, and then of course our model stamp, and you can see it's in the same script as we would find on an original 1873 Winchester, and then 1873. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, with today's computer age and laser engravers and all that, why are you stamping like that? Well, the easy answer is that it's really easy to pick out stamps that have been reproduced with a laser engraver that haven't been hand stamped like originals. And we know that these are very similar to the originals because we just happen to have one here. This is an original hand stamp from Winchester that was used for caliber marking barrels, and this particular one is in 405 WCF, so it would have been used on 1885 high walls and 1895 repeating lever action rifles. And interestingly enough, this one, believe it or not, I got off of eBay for 20 bucks, if you can believe that. I was in the right place at the right time. The maker actually signed this in tiny little letters, and they're so small I don't think we can probably pick them up on the camera, but there's a J. Ulrich. Now, John Ulrich was their master engraver, so when he wasn't busy engraving high-end Winchesters, he was actually hand making these hand stamps, caliber stamps, and these address stamps just like these. I'm sure he made some like these as well. So no two stamps are exactly alike. They were handmade and hand engraved. Now the smaller stamps, like this little Christmas tree stamp, they're pretty simple. We just get them lined up really well, and then just like what you would think with a hand stamp, we just tap them on there. Not quite deep enough the first time, line it back up again, give it another tap, and typically it works out pretty well. But what gets more complicated is something as long as this model stamp, or the 1873 stamp. And even more so if we look at this original Winchester 405 WCF. I mean, it's half again as long as that model stamp. So we're going to press these in rather than trying to tap them in by hand. So we've got some fixtures made up here, and we're going to head over the shop press, and I'll show you how we do that. Okay, so we're just going to use this standard hydraulic shop press to press in these stamps. And what we've done, we've made some modifications, some fixtures to make this all work. The first thing we did is we machined a kind of a bushing here on the bottom of the shaft on this press, and it has a hole in the bottom that's a almost perfect fit with this shaft here that we put in to the bottom here, and then we slotted the bottom of this so that the stamp fits in there very nicely, and there's no wiggle room in there. So we've got this bushing, the shaft, and the stamp all working together. Alright, so we've got it straight up and down, and now what we needed to do is we need to get this tang straight up and down. Now the tang on a 1873 is tapered, so we've made a fixture here that's tapered to make it absolutely level with the rest of the press. And I welded some sides on. You can see there's sides on this fixture here, and that's to keep this stamp straight up and down, so we can't get it off one way or another when we're putting that stamp in there. Now this process is very delicate, and it takes about 3 or 4 hands, but all I got's 2, so I'm going to get this camera around where I get the best angle, and then try to show you as best as I can. And you won't be able to see exactly how I do it, but you'll get about as close an idea as I can give you. Okay, we've taken a little time here and gotten everything lined up just the way we want it, and if we've got everything just right, then it's a matter of just putting on the amount of hydraulic pressure that we want. We've kind of tested and seen where that is, and to get the exact depth that we're after. So we're just kind of tightening things up now, and there we go. We're good and tight, and we'll put a little more tension on it. Okay, so now the moment of truth. We let it off and see how it ended up. Oh, beautiful. Let's see if we can get that on the camera there. Well, I may have to get it around somewhere where it focuses better and we don't have so much shine on it, but it really came out nice. The tough part is getting this thing nice and even, and this one came out really nice and even. Just perfect. Okay, so we're going through that same process, lining everything up for this 1873 stamp. Got everything pretty much where I want it now. Just kind of double checking things. Let's see if we can't get you over here where maybe you can see it a little bit better. Kind of the setup here. And it's time to start cranking it down. Okay, we just came up tight, and I saw it shift just a little bit, so I'm going to try to line things up just a little bit better. Okay, so here we go. All right, so let's see how that did. And very, very nice. Just right. Now again, I'm not sure if you can see that very well or not, but that 1873 is just a little bit deeper than the model, so we'll go back and line that back up again and hit that model just a little bit deeper. Okay, so here's the high-tech part. We're going to hand stamp in these little Christmas trees on each end, and you can see we've got everything kind of marked out to give us an idea of exactly where they're going to go. And now it's just a matter of getting the hammer out and tapping them in there. Okay, so this is pretty delicate work here. We'll get our stamp right within our lines here, and then it's a little bit of a feel. We have to feel just exactly where flat is there. Otherwise we'll get one end deeper than the other or higher than the other. And of course this piece is domed a little bit, so it has to get in there fairly deep to be able to see it. So I think we're in there pretty close right now. Give it a good wrap. All right. So it's, because of the way that's domed, it's a little deeper on one side or the other, but we gave it a good wrap so we can feel just exactly when this thing is back in there where it belongs. And that would be right there. Now we can tip it just a little bit to where it's a little bit lighter and give it another wrap. And perfect. Let's see if I can get this off of here and this camera down to where you can see that now. And we got to get it. Oh, focus, focus, focus. There we go. So that's right in there. That's really nice. Okay, we got to get the other one done and then we'll show you the results of our labors. Okay, now that we've got this upper tang all marked and it come out really nice, let's talk about how we mark that lower tang. And of course, we all know that lower tang is where on an 1873 they had the serial number. Okay, so rather than taking you through our process, showing you how we restamp the serial number on this lower tang on a customer gun and broadcasting that customer serial number all over YouTube, we'll take you through our process on a donor lower tang here. This one is just a rust bucket that was nothing really special about it. It was a set trigger tang and we got some set trigger parts of it, but it's just so rusty and bent that it's of no use to us otherwise. And we did check with the Cody Firearms Museum just to make sure it wasn't something really special, and it wasn't, just a 32 set trigger and standard in other regards. So a good donor piece. Now our first challenge was that this carbine that we're working on was so rough we couldn't definitively read the serial number. Most of it we could, but there were a couple of numbers in there that could have gone one way or another. So let me show you what at least part of this serial number looked like when it came in. Now here's a picture of the serial number on this 1873 when it came into us. And we've got a couple of the numbers here covered up with the front of the receiver there just for privacy's sake. But you can see what a challenge it can be to read these. Now sometimes when we start polishing, then those numbers kind of stand out a little bit better. And we tried that here, but it was pretty obvious that that wasn't going to work. And if they're too bad, we can pull them with acid as well. But we always try to read them first. And then in this case, there were a couple of different combinations that were a possibility, and we couldn't be exactly sure of which one. So we checked with our good friends over at the Cody Records office at the Cody Firearms Museum and ran a couple of combinations that were a possibility, and only one of them came back as a saddle ring carbine. So that clarified things for us really well, and that's the serial number that we used. Okay, so we've got our donor lower tang here, and we've actually got it screwed down to a piece of steel here that actually serves a dual purpose for stamping Colt single action armies as well. And then we've got it set on a piece of steel here that's right over the post on the corner of this bench, so it gives us some rigidity and something to help drive that stamp in. We have our hammer here with a brass head on it. We have our number stamps laid out here, and then our guide. So this guide is made so that the bottom of it has grooves in it that match the lower tang. So that's how we keep these number stamps straight up and down and centered on that lower tang. Okay, so pretty simple, basic. We're gonna punch one in, and then we're gonna move it over. Now these are 1/8 inch stamps, and they are separated by 1/8 of an inch. So they're 1/8 inch tall and 1/8 inch spacing between them, so it's fairly easy to keep track of. Now these are the correct font for a big share of the 1873s. Now there were about 4 or 5 different fonts used for serial numbers throughout the production of the 1873. This is probably the most common, runs from probably around 100,000 serial number to up around 500,000 serial number. So a whole lot of them use this font. And it's really important then to have all the different types of fonts to restamp to make sure that the serial number you're stamping is correct. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we've got a mark on here where serial numbers start from measuring several other lower tangs, and we're going to get our calipers here and measure where that first number is going to go, and then they'll all be based off of that first number. And we've got little sight windows on both sides of this so we can see where it goes. And I'm just going to start just arbitrarily with a 3 here. Set that in there and then see where we are. Okay, so that's showing 150 thousandths, and that's kind of that's going to make it easier to do the math on in my head as we go along. We'll do this one at 150 thousandths, and then we'll move 125 thousandths over, put another stamp in, and so on and so forth. Okay, so here's the nerve-wracking part for the guy putting the serial number stamps in. Get everything lined up, and then we're going to try to hit it good and square and deep. And if we don't, we can go back and straighten it out. That one came out really, really good. Let's see if we can get the camera over here and show you that first 3. If we can get that focused in, we're in the wrong place. There we go. Focus. There. So it's right where it needs to be. That 3 came out really, really nice. Okay, so our next number, we'll just go with that one was a 3. We'll go with a 4, and we're going to get this set at 275 thousandths. Set up our guide here. Get our number 4. And try to get it really close before we put our stamp in there so we don't drag it along and scratch up the polish. Not that it really matters on this one because it's never going to go on a gun. Okay, so now we've got our 4. Okay, so now you've seen our process for restamping these serial numbers. Let's take a quick look at how the restamping turned out on this 73 carbine we're working on. They came in with those serial numbers that were pretty unreadable. Okay, so we've got the first couple of numbers covered up on both the picture of it as it came in originally, and this is one that we've got restamped now, but look at the night and day difference. Now, of course, you see on the end of them, a lot of these 1873s had either an A or a B, and in this case, of course, it was a B, so we've got that restamped as well. Now, there was another type of stamping that was done extensively during this time frame, and that was roll stamps. Now, for something really long like a barrel address, this particular roll die is for a barrel address on a Colt Lightning barrel. You can imagine how difficult it'll be to try to hand stamp in something that long and get it even. So they actually rolled these onto the barrels, and then they used others like, say, this receiver stamp, this rampant Colt that would go on the side of a receiver for a Colt Lightning rifle. They would be rolled in as well. And here's an example. We just rolled this one in the other day. This is our deluxe Colt Lightning rifle project that we've been doing some episodes on, and hopefully we'll have some more episodes on it real soon again. But we just rolled that one in and it turned out really nice. It would have been almost impossible to get that evenly stamped by hand. Okay, so this old 73 carbine's freshly restamped, ready for bluing. We've already got the barrel and mag tube rust blued. We've got new wood fit to it. Matter of get her back together and back to the customer. Now, whenever possible, of course, we always try to save the original stamps, but when they come in this badly pitted or dinged really deep, we just don't have any option but to polish those original stamps out and restamp. And we restamp it with the same kind of stamps they used originally in the same processes they used then. There's no laser engraving, there's no hand engraving that stuff in. We stamp them just like they were originally. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I appreciate you joining us today and hope maybe you learned a little something. Until next time, happy trails from Wyoming Armory in Cody, Wyoming.